Right now at 5:30, we are breaking down what's on the ballot and learning how your vote is being counted. That's coming from those in charge.
Throughout this half hour, we are all diving into the issues that will impact you no matter how those votes come in, from hot button topics like abortion and marijuana to the ones impacting your wallet.
And with less than a week to go and you making decisions tonight, we look ahead to a likely historic 2024 election. Thanks for joining us on 10 Tampa Bay for special coverage ahead of Election Day. I'm Frank Wiley.
And I'm Emerald Morrow in for Dave. Right now across the state, we're seeing the turnout already with early voting. Breaking down the numbers, out of the nearly 14 million registered voters in Florida, more than 44% of them have already handed in their ballots either by mail or in person. At this moment, about 1 million mail-in ballots still have yet to be turned in. A big factor pulling people to the polls is not only the names on the ballot, but those amendments.
Yeah, you may have seen TV ads for issues like abortion and recreational marijuana looking to influence votes out there. Want to get to those in just a moment, but first want to take a deeper dive into Amendment 1, which, by the way, could change politics in our schools. Amendment 1 would establish school board elections as partisan. Political parties could nominate candidates, and candidates could list their party affiliation on the ballot. Supporters of the amendment say it promotes transparency. Folks on the other side argue it would bring more polarization into decisions impacting students.
I don't understand what benefit there is to communities. We've already politicized our school boards, and at this point, why would we want to do it anymore?
This is to try to give as much information as possible to the voter and to really stop the parties from playing the games that they're doing.
School board elections have been nonpartisan since 1998, when voters passed a constitutional amendment getting rid of political parties in school board races.
Now looking at Amendment 2, voters will decide whether to enshrine fishing and hunting rights into the Florida Constitution, something the chairman of Florida Fish and Wildlife supports.
Maybe these things in the future are attacked or dwindled away. So I think that what we were trying to do with this is go ahead and put it in the Constitution that there will always be the right to hunt and fish.
Those against Amendment 2 have these concerns. They say it could be weaponized to override protections for certain species. It could also open state waters to foreign commercial fishing and possibly allow hunters to trespass on private property.
The biggest concern is not so much the black and white of the language of Amendment 2, is how exactly the Republican legislature is going to implement it afterwards.
Regardless of how you vote on Amendment 2, the authority granted to FWC by the state constitution would stay the same. And one amendment getting lots of attention is Amendment 3.
Yeah, it deals with the legalization of recreational marijuana in the state. If passed, it could allow adults to buy and use marijuana for non-medicinal purposes. Sellers would have to get a license from the state to operate recreational marijuana businesses. Consumers could carry up to 3 ounces on them and up to 5 grams if it's concentrated.
10 Tampa Bay's Aaron Parsegian speaks to people for and against Amendment 3, breaking down the arguments on both sides.
This is one of the most egregious things I've ever seen attempted.
Talking to a room full of students at Florida College, Governor Ron DeSantis pulled no punches in calling on voters to reject Amendment 3, which if passed would allow adults to buy and possess recreational marijuana.
I don't think there's a lot of people that can justify some of the things that are in here.
DeSantis says the measure would impact quality of life, cause problems on roadways, and lead to a flurry of litigation for small businesses. One of the biggest champions for the proposal has been another Republican, State Senator Joe Gruters, who says the state can pass additional guardrails if voters give it the green light.
Ultimately, it's about safety, it's about decriminalization, and it's about putting the necessary guardrails up, and we do it the right way, the Florida way.
Aaron Parsegian, 10 Tampa Bay.
And our Verify team has been looking into claims made about Amendment 3, and we want to make it clear that if passed, recreational marijuana would not immediately become legal. The state legislature would still have to pass a law first that makes the legalization official. Right now, under the Verify section on 10tampabay.com, you can find a full list of claims about Amendment 3 that the team has looked into. That includes more on why statements about homegrown weed and smoking in public are misleading. And right now, tens of millions of dollars have been poured into campaigns for and against Amendment 4, which would effectively get rid of Florida's current 6-week abortion ban.
Yeah, if passed, access to abortion would be available up to about 24 weeks or to save the life of the mother. Governor Ron DeSantis has campaigned against the measures, saying the language on that ballot just too vague.
They don't define any of the terms that they're using in the amendment. And that's by design, because if you think about it, if you're going to do we should all agree on what the hell we're voting on, and nobody can agree on what you're voting on.
I want to go ahead and break down the language because if passed, it would allow abortions up to fetal viability, which by the way means abortions would no longer be allowed once the fetus is able to survive outside the womb. Doctors say that generally is around 24 weeks into a pregnancy. The only exception here is if the mother's health care provider determines an abortion is necessary to protect her health. The second part of what you'll see on your ballot there for Amendment 4 deals with parental rights when it comes to minors looking to get an abortion.
And our Verified team has heard from so many of you who say you've seen ads making opposing claims on how Amendment 4 would impact parental rights. Now, taking a look at what Amendment 4 says. It mentions parental notification, which requires that parents be told in advance if their child is seeking an abortion. It doesn't say anything about parental consent. That means if passed, the current law requiring parental consent for abortions would not change. So, no. Passing Amendment 4 would not overturn parental consent for minors seeking abortions. The only way to overturn that law would be in a court left up to the decision of a judge. Misleading claims are showing up in political ads on both sides, which raises the question, can advertisers get in trouble for that?
Yeah, still to come in our special election coverage this half hour, we dive into rules on telling the truth in political ads and who is responsible to find the facts.
But first, we are taking a look at the race for the White House, where abortion is also a top issue. Both presidential candidates have taken to the campaign trail clarifying their stance. Former President Donald Trump, as a registered voter in Florida, was asked about how he will vote on Amendment 4. During the interview on NBC News in August, he said he thinks Florida's 6-week ban is too strict.
Well, I think the 6-week is too short. It has to be more time, and so and I've told them that I want more weeks.
So you'll vote in favor of the amendment?
I am going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks.
The next day, Mr. Trump clarified that while he does disagree with the 6-week ban, he will be voting no on Amendment 4, keeping the ban in place. And when it comes to abortion on the national level, Mr. Trump has said that he would not support a federal ban on abortion and believes the issue should be left up to the states.
Meantime, Vice President Kamala Harris says she's committed to getting federal protections for abortion reinstated. CBS Evening News anchor Norah O'Donnell questioning Harris on that plan that we're talking about during a recent interview, asking the vice president to go into more detail on what that would look like.
Let's put back in place Roe versus Wade.
So you do support restrictions after viability?
I support Roe versus Wade being put back into law by Congress and to restore the fundamental right of women to make decisions about their own body.
Under Roe versus Wade, states were allowed to put certain restrictions on abortions in the second and third trimesters, with exceptions to protect the mother's health. As you go through the list of proposed constitutional amendments, you'll find the last two directly impact how your taxes are collected and spent.
That's right. We caught up with voters at a polling site in Tampa to talk about what they knew about Amendments 5 and 6.
Did you come in today really knowing anything about either Amendments 5 or 6?
I did not.
No, neither.
Actually, I didn't.
Starting with Amendment 5, if passed, homestead tax exemptions would be adjusted each year to account for changes in inflation. Supporters of the proposal are focused on how it would help homeowners pay less in property taxes.
I think a lot of young people that I talk to, like not even that young, like in their mid-30s, really can't afford rent, let alone buying a house because the mortgage rates are so high, the interest rates are high. So any little way they could save money, I think that would help them and also help the economy.
People voting no told us their priority is making sure local governments have enough money to fund their programs and projects.
Given that I'm not a homeowner,
and that I do care a great deal amount about the infrastructure. I'd say that one's a pretty easy choice for me, since I won't be paying any more money and I will probably see improvements to the public services.
All right, I want to turn now to Amendment 6, which, by the way, would get rid of access to taxpayer dollars for statewide elections campaigns. Some folks say they don't want their taxpayer dollars funding anyone's campaign, while others say it helps even the playing field.
No taxpayer dollars to fund campaigns.
If they want to run, they should use their own money.
I do like the idea of smaller candidates with less corporate backing having a better chance at running.
That was a tough one. It was very tough because I could see both sides of it.
All right, so here's the program a yes vote would get rid of. It provides public funds only to certain candidates, including those running for governor and attorney general. To be eligible to get that money, the candidates have to agree to limiting how much they spend on their campaign and hand over an audit of their campaign funds after the election. Right now, you can find our full voting guide on 10tampabay.com. That includes early voting hours and locations, a list of major races, and answers to some of the most asked questions ahead of Election Day. You can also text the word VOTE to the number right there on your screen, 727-577-8522, and we will send the guide directly to you. Our Verified team has been getting a lot of questions from viewers about claims in those TV ads.
Yeah, that's right. One side is saying one thing while the other side says something completely different. So can you trust either of them? Brandon Lewis looks into why what they say does not have to be true.
There's no escaping political ads, and some are making pretty outlandish claims. Some Verify viewers emailed us to ask if candidate ads have to tell the truth. So let's verify. Are political ads required to be factual in order to be aired on broadcast television? Our sources are the Federal Communications Commission, the Federal Trade Commission, and University of Minnesota political science professor David Schultz. The rules for political ads are very different than typical consumer products, and we want to be clear up front that the answer to this question is no. Political ads are not required to be factual in order to be aired on broadcast television. In fact, the law allows politicians to say almost whatever they want in a commercial. This is because political ads are regulated by the FCC, which applies just two rules. One is that all candidates have the same opportunity to buy commercial time on stations. And two is that politicians can say whatever they want. Accuracy is not one of the rules, although TV stations could run a disclaimer explaining the rules before airing an ad. The only consequence for politicians who produce misleading or false ads is in court, and that's only if they defame someone, which is rare and hard to prove.
I think the rationale behind it is what? The idea of saying that candidates get to say what they want, and what? The voters get to sort of, through the marketplace of ideas, decide what's true, what's false.
That marketplace could also include news stories or fact checks like Verify stories explaining what's true and false. Schultz says you should always read the fine print on an ad to see who is funding it and do your own research on a candidate to see if what's being claimed is really true. With your Verify, I'm Brandon Lewis.
So if you have questions, you can text them to our Verified team, 727-577-8522, or you can email verify@10tampabay.com.
Right now, we are taking a closer look at what happens to your ballot once you turn it in. And 10 Tampa Bay's Eric Glasser joins us in studio. And Eric, you went behind the scenes to see how a vote gets counted.
Yeah, guys, accuracy and security. That's really what people want when they go to cast their vote. Sharing a detailed look at that process, it makes your vote not only making sure that it counts, but that it's counted correctly. After filling out your ballot, either early on Election Day or by mail, that ballot is fed into a scanner, a freestanding machine that tabulates your vote and then hangs on to your paper ballot. No copies or a receipt, but you can check your local Office of Elections website to confirm your ballot has been processed.
Florida doesn't issue receipts. In Florida, by the Constitution and state law, it's a secret ballot. So we're not going to give somebody a receipt that shows how they voted. Florida doesn't do that.
Ballots are counted to make sure they match the number of people who use each machine. Your vote is tabulated along with anyone who used that same scanner and is then stored on an internal server, not connected to any other machine, computer, or the internet for security reasons.
The only way we can get information off of that is with the thumb drive. And that's what we use to get the results election night. We use a thumb drive to get those results off. Then we're able to put it into our system where we send it to the state, and we also publish it to a link on our website.
Now, this is where your vote and your ballot go their separate ways. While your vote data is double-checked for accuracy and sent to the Secretary of State for certification, your ballot is securely held in storage by law for 22 months. First, in case there's a need for a recount by hand, and then beyond that,
because it's public record that we have to keep for quite a bit of time.
There have also been a couple of legal changes since the 2020 election. In the state of Florida, for example, people now have to re-register every election cycle for a vote by mail ballot. And on election night, the mail-in ballot count has to be updated hourly. Also, because of the hurricanes, Governor Ron DeSantis issued an executive order giving election supervisors flexibility to change precinct locations if needed. But that order will expire after this election.
In Hillsborough County here, we lost an early vote site, and we lost 7 election day sites. So we've co-located those to nearby sites, notified the voters, and that was also a change in the governor's executive order.
Finally, after 22 months, that's where your ballot's journey ends. It is removed from storage, shredded, and securely disposed of, guys.
And Eric, we know Hurricanes Helene and Milton may have complicated some things for people who requested those mail-in ballots. Now, the Postal Service says they can process and deliver ballots without any issues, but some people may have lost their ballots during the storm.
Yeah, they lost a lot, including potentially their ballots. If your vote by mail ballot was lost or damaged in the storm, you can still go to vote in person early now or on election day. Election officials will have you fill out what's called a provisional ballot. When they process it, they'll first confirm that your mail-in ballot was never received, and then your provisional ballot will be counted. If you already sent out your mail-in ballot, you can track it on your Supervisor of Elections website. In studio, Eric Glasser, 10 Tampa Bay.
Early voting polls set to close this weekend in preparation for Election Day this Tuesday. So if you choose to vote on Election Day, there are some things to keep in mind. Polls open from 7 in the morning till 7 in the evening, and if you are in line by 7 o'clock in the evening, you can still cast your ballot. On Election Day, you must vote at your assigned polling location. Make sure you bring proper identification, because if you don't, you will still be able to vote, but you'd have to use a provisional ballot.
10 Tampa Bay is staying on top of big races happening locally. Hillsborough County is in the spotlight with big ballot decisions. The race for state attorney is underway between incumbent Susie Lopez and her predecessor, Andrew Warren. 2 referendums are also on the Hillsborough County ballot. One looks at increasing the millage rate. Those funds would go to support higher salaries for teachers and staff. Voters will also decide whether to increase the community investment tax, which funds projects like road repairs and also other public safety improvements.
And we will have team coverage of these races on election night, so make sure you download that free 10 Tampa Bay Plus app on your favorite streaming device. As soon as the polls close at 7 p.m., 10 Tampa Bay will have live coverage breaking down the results.